Slaves to Darkness, there is a lot of armor to paint with these guys, and it's not quite as simple as it was with the Stormcast where it's just all one color. In this video, I'm going to tackle some more of the elite units in the form of the Chaos Chosen. Let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back, I'm Wayne. Thanks for joining me. This is another video in our Slaves to Darkness army painting series. We're slowly getting through it now, and we've got through the battle line units, or whatever they're called in 4th edition, and we're on to the more elite. The Chaos Chosen, the spiky guys themselves, even spikier than the other guys. Well, we've already chosen the palette. We chose that way back in the first video. If you've not seen that, there's a playlist up here. Go and check it out. And we're going to go for something a little more interesting than the silver. That's right, we're going to go for a brassy, bronzy colour. As they move through the ranks, we're going to change the colour of the metal. Thanks to my friend Liam. I think you had the original idea for this that you popped in my head a while back, and I wasn't going to go with it, but it makes sense. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I want to keep these similar to the warriors, but different enough that they show a progression through the ranks. How are we going to do that? Well, let's find out and paint some models. Before we get too far into this video, I'm just going to say again that it's worth going back to check out the earlier videos in the series, especially if this is your first video that you're checking out in the series. It's absolutely worth going back to the beginning, checking out where we pick the colours, we establish what we're going to do with the basing, and also definitely check out the Chaos Warriors and the Chaos Knights, because we're going to build on things that we've already done in those videos, and I won't be reiterating those here other than referencing those. Especially the final step, which is to put the OSL glow on. That's covered in the Chaos Warriors video, so do go back and check that one out. Okay then, so first things first, just to establish what we are doing here, I'm going to hit everything on the model with a light dry brush of that warm grey we've been using all along. Everything that is an armour, so all of the wraps, all of the leather details, skulls, things like that, just get this colour on there. Don't worry if you go onto the armour, it's not the end of the world. But that's just going to pick out the areas that we want to do the different techniques on and give us a good foundation to work from. I am using the banner bearer as well as the example model here, just because I think it gives us a little bit of a more interesting base to work from, but any of the Chaos Chosen you will do in the same techniques, same way. I've not done anything different on any of the others, as you'll see at the end of the video. Straight on then to getting the armor sorted out. Now, I've had a couple of questions about this in the comments over the past few videos, asking is there a Games Workshop alternative to this game color that I'm using from Vallejo? And well, yeah, any dark metallic silver will do. So something like lead belcher, absolutely fine. Try not to get too caught up in specific colors or paints unless you want to replicate it one-to-one. It really doesn't matter. Anything that's remotely in the ballpark is going to give you pretty much the same results, so don't worry too much about that. Use whatever you've got to hand. Usually the best paint that you can use is the ones that you've got. Using whatever color it is that you've got, then that metallic, just hit the rest of the model with your dry brush of that. Don't go too heavy on it, but you want to hit all of the armor parts. This is going to give us the foundation for building up that brassy color that we're looking to get in the next few steps. And it will give us a nice textured base to the armor rather than just those solid black panels. Hopefully this is all fairly familiar to you now after the Knights and the Chaos Warriors, and we are going to use this continually with the rest of the army as well, where there's any sort of armor element involved. Now, the first real change from what we've done previously is rather than doing a selective dry brush with brassy brass, what we're going to do is hit all of the armor panels again using this color over what we've just done with that dark gunmetal. This is going to give us a good foundation and really make the next color pop when we come back in with that. And what this will do is just give us that brighter edge or highlight without putting too much effort into it. Yes, we'll have to come in and clean it up later on, but we were going to do that anyway. So this is really going to speed up that process because there is a lot of detail on this Baroque style armor. And yes, we could paint it all just in a standard technique, but what's the point in making extra work for ourselves when we can get something that looks just as good without as much effort? Work your way over the entire model with this. You don't want to go too heavy, but don't worry if you do go too heavy in certain areas. We are going to come back in and clean that up. And again, it does just add another layer of texture. So as Bob Ross would say, it's a little bit of a nappy accident, but try not to have too many of those happy accidents. Otherwise it will start to look a little bit soft and messy. Once we've done that, we can already see it's starting to look much better than the Chaos Warriors did at this stage. It has definitely got some more presence. What we want to do next then is we're going to pick out a bright brass color, or you could use a light gold. What we're going to use this for is just to highlight. We're going to polish the armor almost. Again, we're going to do this using the dry brushing technique. It's nice, fast, and effective, but you want to go light here, guys. Entirely up to your own personal preference, but you don't want to pick out too much of it. The idea is to make the model read as brass, not as gold. So you want to have some of that color that we put in the previous step. Concentrate on the higher points where the light would be hitting from top down, just glinting on the edges. Literally, it's that polishing aspect. It's going to give a sharpness to that Baroque armor, and it really does help bring the model to life. The lighting can play an important part as well. So what you're seeing here is hopefully you can see the top of the armor really starting to pop compared to the bottom. If you go too far with this, the entire armor will read as gold, which is what we want to avoid doing because we want to keep that for our Chaos Lords and character models. We're almost there with the armor now. Last step, any silver, a nice bright one. We're going to use this just to pick out the very highest edges of the armor and also the weapons. Again, for the most part, I'm going to dry brush this very, very gently. You don't want to go too far because it will read as gold then. Very gentle dry brush over all of the top of the armor, just from the top down. A tickle, you might say. Nothing more than that. Just a little whisper of paint on each part will give it just a little bit of brightness and make it pop. It's just one step further than we did with the Chaos Warriors, just to help, just to bring them out inside of the army. It's a little bit more attention, a little bit more detail. I think you'll agree it's been massively easy up until this point, and we're going to carry on with that sentiment and make it easy as we can. Picking out some contrast colours, but any of your paints will do here. We're going to pick out the leathers, the skulls, and we're going to bring in that blue colour that we've used right from the get-go on the wraps and the weapons. Just gives us another point of visual coherency throughout the entire army, especially where there's going to be a diversity of units that aren't just armoured Chaos Warriors, chosen, whatever. It brings it all together, another visual glue that isn't just the bases to tie them all together as one narrative whole. Okay, so we're going to work our way around the model, just doing what we've previously done with the Chaos Warriors, so working in the same way as we did on the capes and on the skulls, any of the flourishes to the model. If you want to have more information on that, do feel free to jump back and check out those earlier videos rather than us going through it every single element in every single video. And once you've done that, come back up here and we'll be on to the next step. If you've watched the Chaos Knights video, you'll be intimately familiar with this step then. All I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some thinned down Black Templar contrast paint or black ink or any standard thinned down acrylic paint that's black, and I'm going to start to lightly block in the armor between the Baroque trim. Now, this may seem like it's inverse to what you would normally do, but this is much easier than painting the trim individually, and it really does help give that texture because where we dry brushed in the first couple of steps, that is going to show through this black paint and it will give us a metallic depth to the black that we're applying. Rather than it just being this matte black finish, it has a little bit more of a visual flair, a little bit more interest than painting the trim individually and having this perfect black finish to the armor plates. Now, this is somewhat time consuming and laborious. It is probably the longest step here, much as it was with the Chaos Knights, and we will be doing this further down the line with some of the other units in the army. So we can't escape it, but the time that we've saved to the left of this step more than makes up for it. Work your way around the model, depending on which armor panels that you want to completely fill in. That's entirely up to you. I'm going with the rule of cool and whatever looks good for me. It might not necessarily be the same for you. Your mileage may vary, but you do you. They're your models at the end of the day. This is just a rough guide to how you might get them to the tabletop fast. It's worth remembering as well that as we're introducing a very dark colour here, black, make the armour trim look brighter. It will as well give us a dark contrast for where we put our glow effect later on. Again, I won't be covering the glow effect in this video. That'll be right at the end. Do jump back to the basing video earlier in the series to check out that in its entirety and see how we having this extra black on the armor compared to the knights and the warriors though will make that OSL pop even more, because there'll be the contrast between the darkest dark, which will be black, and the highest, warmest, hottest point on the OSL, which will be pretty much glazed white with tiny smidgen of pink. Will make it really, really pop, especially in the eyes and around the mouth, bringing the viewer's eye exactly where we want it, to the face, without too much effort at all. Dead easy, dead straightforward. Okay, we're pretty much done at this point. The only thing we've got left to do is to prep for that OSL. So let's just have a refresher of how we're going to do that. As always, I'm going to be using white ink. For me, I find it just works a little bit better than white acrylic paint, but you can use thin down white acrylic paint. This just flows a little bit easier for me into the crevices where we want to get things put. In this case, the eyes, around the mouth plate, if there is one on each individual model, any of the glyphs and any other parts of the model where we want to have that chaotic glow emanating from. Get a good, decent amount of the white paint, ink, whatever on your brush, and just drop it in. I would recommend using a reasonably good brush for this. It should just flow off the bristles. Don't worry if you get a little bit around the area that you're dropping it into. That will always read as part of the glow. And the final step for me is to give a little bit of a spritz with the airbrush, using that same white ink around any of the white that we've just put on the model. That will help us when we do our glow effect, which we've already covered, as I said, really start to glow. If you don't have an airbrush, not to worry, you can do exactly the same thing. It'll just take you a little bit longer. Just stipple again with your dry brush. Make sure your bristles are a tiny bit moist and work slowly and very, very lightly, just tapping your dry brush around the model. Again, one of the cheap makeup brushes, a small round one, will really help you here. So don't worry if you don't have an airbrush. But for expediency, I tend to use an airbrush for the majority of my OSL effects. Once you've done that, you're ready to base it as you did with the rest of the army and get your OSL there. And that is the Chaos Chosen, done, dead straightforward, dead fast. Couldn't be easier, building on those techniques we've already established in early videos. Okay, let's take a look at how they look finished then. How do you think these turned out? Did they interact with the bases? Does it look as well as the silver looks on the Chaos Warriors and the Knights on these guys? Let me know down in the comments what you think. Is there anything that we could improve perhaps as we're tweaking it as we go along? Or do you think these look more than good enough to get to where we want to get, which is a consistent looking, decent size, fast turnaround army? Let me know. Next time, I think we're going to start looking at some a little bit more interesting and look at some more of the elites. Maybe I can't remember how you pronounce these guys, the Firmroids? Firmroid Crusher, is it? and the Therodons. We've got all of those guys to figure out, because we can't just do black armor for those. How we're going to get those to look a little bit different? Don't know. Guess you'll have to come back and we'll figure it out together. I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a good hobby week, and I'll see you next time.